I guess when I think about Phil, it's you just think about. I think of him as being a good man. He was known as being an amazing pilot, a brilliant pilot who remained totally cool in the roughest circumstances, and had a real talent in that regard, level-headed. And I think he had a certain amount of that in his real life too. He had his feet on the ground. He was, obviously not when he was in the plane, but when he was outside of the plane, his feet on the ground. He had a girl back home, a fiancée, Cece, who he proposed to and who he sent money to a ring for. And he's a good man, and he's in touch with his relationship with God. He's comfortable with himself, and I think he's probably a good example in some ways to Zamp about how to be a man. I think that's how I think of him anyway. It was great. Our first 2 days were out in the sea. They were the first 2 days in the shoot, and it did give you a sense of just the power of. We were in calm water, and it did give you a sense of the power of the thing around you, and was a really good base for the rest of the movie. That if you look in any direction, all you see is power, which is trying to get you off this tiny little raft you're on. The sense of claustrophobia, being trapped in a raft, and agoraphobia of just open water as far as you can see, not knowing necessarily where you're going. It was a great way to start, and yeah, certainly got us in the mood for the adventure of the shoot, because it's just been surprise after surprise as we've gone through. I mean, I think what you look for from the best directors is somebody who leads from the front, and somebody who knows what they're doing, and who's somebody who says we're going there, and you trust them. And that's never been in question with Angie. She's every step of the way she's been inspiring, and she's really been a leader on the whole thing. She got together a great group of people in every department, cast and crew, and it's not been a question of coping. It's been a question of making the best of every moment, and I think she's done that. I find her pretty inspiring in every way. I remember being incredibly entertained by the screenplay when I read it, and maybe that sounds wrong, but it opened with such gusto, and it just showed you what real men were, how real men stood up when everything went wrong around them. And then I remember being entertained by it, and then constantly flipping back to the front where it says, based on a true story. And you read 5 pages and then flip back to the front and say, this can't be so. And then assuming that a great deal of it must have been embellished, must have been kind of made up. And then you read the book, and you read the other books, and you read some of the history, and none of it's made up. And that's, talk about stranger than fiction. The story is incredible in terms of just a feat of humanity, of the human spirit. Amazing.